Hey, you guys, good evening, good evening, good evening. Hopefully, y'all had a good weekend. So, I just wanted to share like a wild revelation that I got. A wild revelation that I got. Years ago, right? So, I want to teach people and I want to show some people right now how the covering that they're submitted under is hindering them. It's blocking them. Many people probably, they have been under certain leadership for 10, 8, 10, 5, 8, 10, 15, 20 years, and somehow, some way, they're not ready, which makes absolutely zero sense to me. I don't know where they found that from. I don't know what scripture they looked up to justify that. However, there are many people who they are limited. Their growth has been stunted because they are underneath the wrong leadership. Not only are many people are underneath the wrong leadership, there are many people who took on this covering situation, and because they have submitted to this covering doctrine, many of them, their growth has been stunted, their growth has been blocked. There's a lot of things that are supposed to happen not only in their lives, but God is trying to use them to be a vessel and to be pretty much like a pusher, a momentum pusher for their family. And because they are underneath these coverings, it stopped, right? So many years ago, I had entered this department, right? And for whatever reason, I realized really quick that this person that I was underneath, this boss that I was underneath, they didn't care for me. They didn't care for me because I was not the type of person to kind of kiss butt. I just wasn't the person to kiss butt. And B, I always found things to make my life smarter and not harder. A lot of their processes that they had. Now, I didn't just go into the department trying to change anything up. It's just along the way I realized, listen, some of the processes, we were working harder than smarter. Nonetheless, the real reason why I believe this boss did not like me was because I didn't kiss butt. I was not like the other people. I was not like the other favorites. I was not like the other people that they onboarded. I was a lone wolf on my own. I was in a league on my own. Now, it does not mean that I was disrespectful or anything. However, this particular boss, she had been over the department for a very long time. Everyone pretty much fall into line. And here I go trying to pretty much shake up everything. So she didn't like me because of that, right? This boss did not like me because of that. What I did not know was the fact that this particular boss was my stumbling block. She was the person that it didn't matter how many jobs that I applied to and within the department, I could not get it. I was qualified and I couldn't get it. It didn't matter how many positions that I tried to apply to outside of the department, I could not move forward. Why? Because this boss, who was my covering, she's the one who covered the department. She was the one who covered all the ins and all the outs, all the interviews going in and all the interviews going out. She was, quote unquote, the covering, and she was the stumbling block. So what happens when the covering that you're under is your stumbling block? What happens when you have submitted underneath the wrong leadership? Do you really think that after you're underneath the covering that most likely God didn't even plant you there? That's your stumbling block. And so back to the story, I fought and fought and fought till finally I started to change the trajectory of how I view things, right? Yes, I brought some stuff up to God and I'm like, God, like this can't make, I don't want to leave the job, but it seems like every time I'm trying to like maneuver or get promoted or move growth, it was a stumbling block. It was even to the point where there were other supervisors who took a liking to me. And because she was over the department, somehow, some way, she made these supervisors eventually not like me. I'll give you an example. There was one example where she stopped my performance review. She stopped me from getting a bonus one year. And even the supervisor, because the supervisor, my actual supervisor, I did a good review, but she had to submit it to that same manager, that same boss, and it had to get approved to her before it got to HR. And I remember there was one particular year I did everything right. She submitted it to the manager, and the manager, that same boss that did not like me, the stumbling block lady, she dropped it, and she was like, no, you know, Angela's attitude is not within decorum. Angela's attitude, it's not teamwork. It's not falling into line. And I remember the supervisor looking at me and basically having to bring it back to me, because I got the review and I was like, hey, what's going on? Like, you checked off on everything. What's going on? The lady couldn't even look me in my eyes to say, listen, it's the manager that kind of knocked it down. So I had to figure out something. And I remember feeling so defeated because of that, because I was like, this doesn't make any sense. This doesn't make any sense. So now, right, y'all catch on to this. So I went to HR thinking that HR was the neutral ground, thinking that HR would basically keep this man, will get, you know, go to the manager and figure out, hey, what's going on? I did not know HR was in cahoots with the boss. So that doesn't equate to when people try to go against their covering to be like, hey, like, this doesn't make sense. What's going on? When is my time up? And they decide to go over their boss or their head, either to find out, A, they don't have a head. They don't have nobody over them. Or if they do have somebody over them, they so covering for each other that is basically another block, another roadblock. And so in the natural, that what was happening to me. Now, I did not know that HR was in cahoots with this manager. And I remember just feeling defeated. I remember being so upset. I was literally in tears because I couldn't do it the way that I was used to doing it. Asked the lady to meet me outside. I couldn't do it that way, because how you going to play me like this? I'm probably one of your best and hardworking employees. Like, how are you going to play me like this? Because I don't fall into line, because I don't fall into your protocols. It's not even the company's protocols, it's your protocols, because I don't kiss butt. So I remember there was a lady that was there. She was of the faith, and I remember her encouraging me and just praying. And I remember telling the lady, you watch and see, I'm going to take this to prayer. You watch and see, I'm going to take this to prayer. And I remember taking it to prayer. So how did I get from underneath the stumbling block of a boss, the person that was the cover over the department? They end up having another position. And in this position, before I even applied to this position, I ended up asking God about this position, and I prayed for this position. And I remember saying, God, hey, if this is for me, I need you to do whatever you need to do in the background so that I can push beyond this lady, because this lady she's the stumbling block. She doesn't like the fact that I point things out. I don't fall into line. She doesn't like the fact that I don't laugh at some of her jokes. I don't laugh at when she putting other people's business out. I wasn't for it. She doesn't like the fact that I don't dry snitch. I'm not like her other favorites. So when she's around, she got people around to dry snitch for her. I wasn't one of those people. So she didn't like that. She didn't like that whatsoever. She didn't like the fact that, you know, I just wasn't that type of person that would sit there and let her vent and I would keep her secrets or whatever the case may be. She just didn't like it, right? And so this position comes up. I asked God about it. I prayed about it. And do you not know? She was originally supposed to be over this position. She was originally supposed to be interviewing for this position. And at the last hour, somebody say the last hour, she was removed from the interview panel. And what they did is they didn't allow the managers and the supervisors from the same locations to interview the people that were already stationed there. They had other managers and supervisors interview other locations. So basically, she couldn't interview me because we were in the same location. So it had to be another manager to interview me. Do you not know God orchestrated that thing so that the stumbling block, which was my boss, which is equate to a cover for a lot of y'all, do you not know God changed it around for me? And somebody else interviewed me. And even when I passed the interview, when it went to the second interview, I remember hearing her saying that, well, just because I can't interview the first round, I got to interview the second round. They didn't let her interview the second round. They didn't let her interview the second round. There were many people who was underneath this same lady. When she didn't like them, she did not allow them to get promoted. She did not allow them to go into other departments. It was pretty much like she put it upon herself that if you wanted to grow, if you wanted to get promoted, you needed to go through her, and you needed to kiss her butt, and you needed to go by her protocols, not company protocols, her protocols. What does that sound like? There are many people who are submitted under leadership, who are submitted underneath coverings. It's been 10 years. You telling me you not ready yet? I'm sorry. The whole covering, I don't get it. I don't know who came up with it. But you're telling me your spiritual daughter, your spiritual son still not ready? They've been under you for 10 years. I'm sorry. They still not ready? What kind of stunted growth is that? Why am I saying this? There are many people who I have seen who had the grace of ministerial, pastoral, apostleship on their life when I was young. And I see them now and they're in the same place. But then when I see who they're submitted to, who they're underneath, I see why they're still in the place that they are at. But they're still begging God, avenging God, asking God, oh, they're supposed to have progress. They're supposed to have momentum. They're supposed to have growth. But the stumbling block is the leadership that they're underneath. The stumbling block for their success, for their promotion, is the very exact people that they are submitted underneath. I think y'all don't understand how there are certain leadership. They have certain people underneath them because it makes them look good. The same as my boss, my prior boss. She meticulously, I'm probably chopping off the word, hired certain people underneath her so it can always make her look good. She specifically hired certain supervisors that she know would cover for her, that she know will not go against her. If she felt any type of ounce of disloyalty, she got rid of that supervisor. So take that same thing and take it underneath a lot of these people who are submitted underneath evil covenants. They are submitted underneath coverings that have been stunting their growth, that has been putting the veil over their face and over their eyes, because instead of them submitting to God, instead of them allowing God to be their covenant, instead of allowing God to be their spiritual father, to be their spiritual head, they allowed mere men who can fall to be their covering. They allowed mere men who can fail just like them to be their covering. They allowed mere men who you don't sleep with these people. You don't know what's going on behind closed doors. You're not there when they go on their retreats. You're not there when they're going on to these mountains, these so-called prayer mountains. You're not there when you're behind the green room with them. And even if you are in the green room with them, are you covering for them? Are you covering their sin? Are you covering their unrighteousness? Do they really? The only reason why they have you around is to say, oh yeah, I want you to see how to conduct yourself when you in a green room. When all they're doing in the green room is everything abominable that's against the scriptures of God. That's what you covering for? That's what you submitted under? There are people who are underneath coverings and leaderships that they were supposed to walk away from. They were supposed to listen. The minute that you have to start lying for your spiritual father, your spiritual mother, or your covering, that should be a flag. The minute that you're covering sin that they're doing, whether it's fornication, sexual immorality, that's a flag. The minute you see that they're stealing money from sheeps, that mammon has become their god, that should be a red flag. The minute that you're accepting bribery, but all in the name of, oh yeah, I have to wait my turn. It's 10 years. What turn? I was in corporate America, and they said if you stayed in a position longer than 3 years, that immediately decrease your outcome or decrease your likelihood of going to another department or going to another high position or going to another company. 3 years. 3 years. I saw high executives, C-levels executives that jumped around from promotion to promotion, and they made sure they never stayed in a years beyond 3 years. But you have sheeps of people who are underneath coverings, who are underneath spiritual parents, telling them that they need to wait their turn, telling them that they're not ready. But what did God say? What did the Bible say? What did the Bible say? Had I not fought and contend to get from underneath that lady and realizing that boss was really my stumbling block, I would not be able to move up in the way that I have moved up in corporate ladder. I would not have been able to. Let me tell you guys something. Real leadership go underneath the people that they are assigned to and raise them up. I'll say that again. Real leadership go underneath people that they are assigned to, because they're not assigned to everyone, but not all people. Real leadership go underneath people that they are assigned to and raise them up. They're not inferior of them. They're not jealous of them. They don't hold them back. They give them all the knowledge that God has given them, and they make sure they wipe them up real good, and they send them into the world. So how is it that I am seeing people who are bound, and they can't see that they are bound because they're underneath the wrong leadership, because they have went underneath a covering, a doctrine of covering, because they have allowed people who need deliverance to teach them that, oh yeah, you need to be submitted underneath someone. I'm not talking about babes in Christ. I'm talking about people who have sat underneath people for 5, 10, 15 years. How? Just how? Many of you guys have Eli's as coverers. You guys have a person that's like Eli, that is your covering. Whether it's a woman or a man. Y'all have Eli's. And kid you me, unless you did whatever you did, you covered up whatever sin you covered up, and you fight in your way to favoritism when really you need to be fighting for your position in God. You really need to be fighting for how God sees you. And as long as you're underneath that leadership, baby, you may not never see momentum. You may not never see any growth. The slave masters never let their best ones go. Look at all the slave movies. When did you really see the best ones that kept everyone in check? The best slaves that covered for them, that protected them, that looked out for them, that was a spy or a monitoring spirit for them. They never let them go. Even when they got their freedom papers, even when they got their freedom papers, they never let them go. So I really want to understand. And you know what's so sad? Because many of these people, they think that they are doing a God thing. But they never open up the I don't get why they never open up the Bible to see if this is correct. Like, how can you allow somebody to dictate and have authority over your life like that? And you have the Bible who gives you authority, who gives you directions, who give you instruction. How can you and these are adults. These are people that been left their parents' house. These are adults. Let me finish this up. I end up getting the position. They are upset. Not only was the lady upset, was because they even changed the chain of command that I would not fall underneath her anymore. And do you not know that lady fought tooth and nail for that? She fought tooth and nail because they changed the chain of command. And I was not, even though I was in the office, in the building with her, I was no longer underneath her chain of command. And she tried to make it seem like she was fighting because it was some other people that was no longer under her chain of command. She made it seem like she was fighting for that, but no, not so. Because she wanted a way to still control and manipulate some stuff. She wanted a way to still try to control my life. And so God orchestrated it where I was no longer under her chain of command. Let me tell you how God worked. I ended up underneath another leadership. And this lady, God had to have me under her so that I could see that there were true leadership. There was true leadership. And I remember being underneath this lady. And all she said was, I am here to teach y'all to be better than me. I am here to teach y'all to be greater than me. I am here to see y'all get promoted. That was her anthem. Being underneath her, I was able to learn. I literally got a crash course on leadership. Crash course. Because then when it was time for me to get promoted, once again, I got promoted once again. Then I ended up underneath another leader who was the same anthem. My job is for you to be better than me. My job for you is to get promoted. My job is to elevate you. How many of these people get underneath these coverings and they can say the same thing? You've been underneath this covering for 5 to 10 years. Do you see deliverance in your bloodline? Do you see healing in your bloodline? Do you see the shackles being free underneath this covering? And the reason why I'm saying this is because God is trying to wake up a lot of his sons and his daughters to get from underneath this wicked Eli priesthood, get them from underneath them so that they can take the torch to be able to get the deliverance in their family. Why is that? Many of them, their family is perishing. Their bloodlines is perishing. The communities they are called to is perishing. Why? Because they are underneath coverings and spiritual fathers and spiritual mothers that has oppressed them. And I don't care if their leaders take them around to different conferences, because at the end of the day, all the glory, if you notice, go back to their spiritual fathers, to their spiritual mothers, to their coverings. I thought the glory goes back to God. I thought the glory goes back to God. The money that comes in goes back to where? the head. It's a hierarchy system. And many of you, God have been showing you guys the sign. God has been sending you guys strangers. God has been sending you guys just random people to tell you guys to get from underneath these leadership. Why? Because many of you guys hold the torch. Many of you guys are the repairers of the breach for your family. And your family is contingent on you getting the veil from over your head, getting the scales off your eyes, and really contending. But how can you do that if you're underneath an oppression system? How can you do that if you're underneath coverings that so-called won't release you? They're underneath spiritual mothers and spiritual fathers that won't release you. When did you need a release? Have y'all read the book of Acts? When did you need a release? I thought you just needed spiritual counsel. In a multitude of spiritual counsel, there's wisdom. I thought that's what you needed. I thought we were supposed to be submitted to God. I thought the word say not to call no man the Father, because the Father in heaven is your Father. Like, are y'all reading the same book I'm reading? I'll say this again. Had I not contended for that lady to no longer be the stumbling block over me, I would have never gotten promoted. The people that was around me, that was kissing up to her, that was kissing her butt, that was going with her protocols, not company protocols, her protocols, the system that she created within the department, they were getting promoted. But the key thing, they were only getting promoted within her department. The people that she had an issue with, because apparently there was other people that was also in her department, and the minute that she seen that you weren't following the line and you weren't getting into check, they had to fight and contend to get promoted out of her department. I'm telling you guys, people need to wake up. There are pastors, there are prophets, there are teachers, there are evangelists, and there are few apostles who are submitted underneath wicked coverings, who are submitted underneath coverings where the glory of God has already left their life. It is not the spirit of truth that's speaking to them. It is not the glory of God that's in their church. And God has been sending them the signs. Matter of fact, God has probably been sending them the signs through family members, been sending the signs through strangers for them to unyoke themselves underneath that bondage, get healed. God is going to wipe them clean, give them a crash course so that they can contend. Why? Because there are many people within their family that are passing away and they don't know the Lord. There are many people that are passing away and they need to go to those people that are passing away so that those people can renounce and denounce covenants that has been made over the bloodline. There are many people that are supposed to move their community from what they see it now to where it needs to be. But they are yoked underneath a bondage. There are many people who are underneath leadership that you wonder why your finances hasn't been in order for the last 10 years is because you've been underneath that leader. You wonder why you have not gotten that healing that you've been praying for God is because you underneath that leader. You have not gotten the promotion that you wanted. It's been underneath that leader. And though I'm speaking in regards to people who are underneath coverings, who are underneath certain spiritual fathers and spiritual mothers, this doesn't count out for any person who is going to be needed in these next few years in the hospital system, in the military system, in the police system, in the government system, in the agriculture system, in the finance system. The reason why you have not gotten where you need it to be, though God has been showing it to you, or though God even showed it to you before you got into that department, is because you're underneath a wicked boss. And you got to contend to, matter of fact, you have to pray that God can even change the chain of command. Many of you are the key for the liberation for your department where you're working. I'm telling you guys. If there's anyone who see this video, and the last time you asked God about being underneath that leader, being underneath that covering was 5 or 10 years ago, this is the time for you to go in prayer and fasting, not let anyone know about it, and you truly go to God. A, repent for making this person above God's voice, and B, ask God to do a course correction. Ask God to recalibrate your destiny. Ask God to recalibrate your purpose. There are many people, they were never supposed to be under certain leadership. They were never supposed to be under that doctrine of covering, and that has removed, it's like their whole course of life, their whole course of purpose just ran off the road. You want to get it back on track? Go to God about it. Don't tell anyone. Go to God about it. Go to God about it. Isaiah 57 verse 14. God is trying to get you guys to blow the trumpet, but you have a slave master basically telling you, oh no, don't blow the trumpet. You're not ready yet. Don't blow the trumpet. You still have you're not ready. God is trying to tell you, blow the trumpet, and you have this mere man telling you, oh, we don't do that here. Or you need to be subjected to this. You need to be underneath this. God is trying to make y'all blow the trumpet for your bloodline. Blow the trumpet for your family line. Blow the trumpet for certain communities that you're assigned to, but you're underneath a leadership. No progress. No growth. You think a couple cents and a raise is promotion and progress. When are they going to release you? When you 50, 60 years old, that's the time for you to just be wise counsel for the younger generation. That's not the time for you to be getting released. When you going to get released? I'm sorry. How did you get underneath the system where they have to release you? Did you sign up for the Department of Defense? Did you sign? What did you sign up for? I'm telling you guys, there are many people who are not supposed to be underneath certain coverings. They are not supposed to be underneath that hierarchy system. They are not supposed to be underneath a spiritual mother or a spiritual father. And they have been getting the signs. But they don't want to heed the voice of God. So when judgment comes to that leader that you love, that you idolize so much, and when judgment comes to that church, and when judgment comes to that organization, God is not going to spare you. He's not. You could beg for mercy, but he ain't going to spare you. Because the warning's been there. Whew. Y'all be blessed. Share if you care.